Why 2026 will change Leonor forever. After 2026, the camera would find her not in motion, but in stillness. Uniform precise, spine straight, eyes forward, a figure trained to carry time itself without showing the weight. Leonor de Borbón y Ortiz, Princess of Asturias, stands at the narrow edge between preparation and permanence. Between being observed and being counted. In monarchies, some years are ceremonial. Others decide who you become. Spain has known centuries where continuity depended not on armies or laws, but on whether a single individual could embody the state convincingly enough for everyone else to keep believing in it. Continuity is not abstract here, it is embodied in visible presence. By 2026, Leonor will no longer be defined by anticipation. She will be defined by exposure. The rituals surrounding her now appear familiar. Military formation, constitutional oath, public silence that speaks louder than speech. But what appears rehearsed is not routine. It is calibration. National identity is woven into these rituals, not as nostalgia, but as reassurance. Spain is not testing her emotions. It is testing the system that will one day act through her. This is the living thread of continuity. At first glance, nothing dramatic seems scheduled for 2026. No coronation, no rupture, no constitutional reset. And yet, institutions rarely signal their turning points in advance. Because what changes in that year is not her title. It is her margin for error. Until now, protection has been layered. By parents, by protocol, by the assumption of time. After 2026, time begins to withdraw its shelter. The state does not say this aloud. It never does. But internally, a shift occurs. Briefings change tone. Responsibilities cease to be symbolic. Presence becomes operational. At minute distances, the language of the institution hardens. This is where misunderstanding begins. Many assume monarchy survives on affection, on charisma, on public warmth, but modern constitutional monarchy survives on credibility, on predictability, on restraint so complete it becomes trust. Here is the first uncomfortable truth. Leonor is not being prepared to be admired. She is being prepared to be relied upon. And reliance tolerates no ambiguity. This is why the year matters. Because once an heir crosses a certain threshold of age and visibility, the institution no longer asks whether she is ready. It proceeds as if she must be. After 2026, that phrase circulates quietly, not in headlines, but in planning rooms. In military schedules. In diplomatic expectations. After 2026, her absence would be noticed differently. Her presence weighed differently. Her silence interpreted. This is the moment when the audience realizes something unsettling. The monarchy does not evolve around her. She evolves to preserve the monarchy. That reversal is permanent. Spain's constitutional framework is explicit but unforgiving. The crown reigns but does not govern. It symbolizes unity without directing policy. It must be visible without being vulnerable. This balance only works if the person at the center understands power precisely enough never to use it improperly. Training alone cannot guarantee that. Time must test it. What remains carefully unspoken is how early that testing begins. Ceremonial appearances slowly double as stress tests. International engagements quietly evaluate composure. Military association assesses authority without command. Nothing is accidental. The United States watches this closely, not for spectacle, but for stability. A monarchy that cannot signal continuity introduces uncertainty into alliances built on predictability. The United Kingdom recognizes the pattern instantly. It has lived through it. The transition from protected heir to institutional anchor is familiar and unforgiving. Canada and Australia observe from constitutional distance, measuring symbolism against resilience. They understand how quickly reverence can thin if confidence falters. Germany, with its historical sensitivity to institutional legitimacy, watches less emotionally and more analytically. Durability matters more than ceremony. This is not about popularity. It is about whether the structure holds. At around 8 minutes into this story, a deeper question surfaces, one that is never addressed directly. How much individuality can the system afford her? The answer is not written. It is enforced through expectation. Every public role narrows optionality. Every visible duty reduces private latitude. What disappears is not freedom. It is deniability. By 2026, Leonor will no longer be able to disappear into youth. Every gesture will exist in context. Every pause will be read. The institution does not fear mistakes. It fears unpredictability. This is why escalation is subtle. There is no single ceremony that marks the point of no return. It is marked by accumulation. More briefings. More symbolic proximity to command. More international framing. A sense, shared quietly across ministries, that contingency planning has begun to include her presence as a stabilizing variable. That is not ceremonial. That is operational. The midpoint strain arrives not as crisis, but as compression. The space between who she is and what she represents narrows. And when that space collapses, the role becomes total. This is where monarchy reveals its hardest truth. The institution survives not by adapting to the individual, but by absorbing her completely. At 14 minutes, the tension sharpens. Once the air becomes structurally necessary, retreat becomes impossible without consequence. This is the point of no return. From here on, any disruption, political fragmentation, constitutional debate, external pressure, will test not her personality, but her symbolic load-bearing capacity. Can she stand without speaking? Can she reassure without intervening? Can she embody unity without claiming authority? These are not personal questions. They are institutional thresholds. After 2026, the phrase returns, heavier now. Because the future threat is not dramatic. It is procedural. Debates about relevance. Whispers of reform. Questions framed as modernization but aimed at dilution. None of these attack directly. They erode. The monarchy's defense is not argument. It is continuity made visible. This is why her presence matters more than her words. Why restraint outweighs relatability. Why duty eclipses desire. The state does not ask whether this is fair. It asks whether it endures. And endurance demands embodiment. As the final moments approach, the image returns to stillness. Not because nothing is happening, but because everything is. After 2026, the year is no longer a marker on a calendar. It is a threshold crossed quietly, without applause. What comes next has not yet been decided. But the conditions have been set. And history, once it begins to lean forward, rarely waits for hesitation.